I think this is my 12th or 13th flash fiction event, and this was the first time I signed up with nothing. But as all writers know, if you let your muses know you have a deadline, they'll talk to you. Miss Sheila arrived at her storytime room early, slipping into the back where her co-worker, Mr. Bronson, was just finishing up. And when she awakened, she saw 3 pairs of eyes staring at her, and she dove out the window and never came anywhere near the house again. He adjusted his glasses for effect. The moral, don't be like Goldilocks. And the children giggled. Mr. Bronson was a large man, perhaps intimidating at first, but the children loved him. He thumped the book shut, and on cue, his young audience hopped up to either scramble straight to the door or give his legs a quick hug first. And then it was quiet. "You're so good with them," Sheila laughed. I keep it simple. They let them see what they want to see. Odd, though, for a folk tale, most of them actually do have morals. Goldilocks doesn't really have one. Does if you're a bear. And Mr. Bronson lumbered past her to give her space. Sheila nearly let him go, but at the last second blurted out the words she tried to pretend like she hadn't been rehearsing. "Do you want to get a drink?" A drink? Yeah, I mean, not right now, obviously. I thought, after work, we see each other every day, and it might be nice. And the predicate never arrived, but it was okay because Mr. Bronson was lost in thought. "Yeah, okay. You seem harmless." And a few hours later, the two of them were sitting next to each other at a bar a few blocks away with just enough rum and coke to ebb the co-workers outside of work awkwardness that always seems to accompany real human contact. Sheila found herself stuck on Goldilocks as the conversation topic, but Mr. Bronson, whose first name she had yet to learn, showed enough interest to keep it flowing. "See, I quite like the character. Yeah, she's trespassing and technically a thief, but she did things, and I just kind of admire that courage." Is that really courage or just stupidity? It's complicated. I mean, when you're a child, you don't really know what you can't do. You have a fearlessness, you explore, you jump into creeks that you can't see the bottom of, and you don't worry about broken glass or snakes, and you wander in the woods and you don't mind getting lost because you're, I guess, too dumb to really think about consequences. Sometimes I miss being dumb. Isn't that the price of longevity? Yeah, but it was simple. It felt more alive back then. Now I feel like we're living longer and we're afraid of everything. Would you like to hear a story? Seriously? A story from me to you. Yeah, all right. It was an ordinary day in the woods. Fish swam, birds flew, snakes did snake things. It was simple. And everyone could accept that. And they could also accept that one day they might die, probably from an animal bigger or fiercer than they were. But one day, this group of monkeys decided they couldn't accept it. So they built a new woods, where they were the biggest and the fiercest animal. Now, mind you, they didn't actually change size, but they began to function as this swarm. Now, to the other animals, this was the biggest and fiercest thing they had ever seen, and they learned to stay away from the monkeys. So as time went on, the monkeys felt safe, pretty certain that tomorrow was going to be there for them. Now, as they got comfortable with the idea of tomorrow, they got stuck on the notion that there was a way to make tomorrow better for them. Unfortunately, each individual monkey had a different idea about what better was. And the woods they had built became complicated. Now, the old woods did its best to keep a distance, but that swarm was everywhere. And it came as a real surprise to the animals that the monkeys had developed this romantic idea of what the old woods was. They imagined the great folk wisdom lay within the old woods, and they told stories about the old woods and the animals, and they treated this very thing that they'd originally had such disdain for with bizarre reverence. And every once in a while, a lone monkey would sneak into the old woods and ask for guidance to help them understand the now excessively complicated new woods that its own swarm had built. And the damnedest thing is, the monkey always seemed to get an answer. The old woods didn't understand it. It had no wisdom for it. The only wisdom the old woods had was the knowledge that one day, tomorrow forthcoming, the new woods would be the only woods. And if these monkeys couldn't figure out how to live in it, what the hell kind of chance do the other animals have? Yeah, best not tell that one to the kids. They finished off their drinks, chatted a bit longer before accepting the inevitable that it was getting late-ish. Responsible adult on a weeknight late. Mr. Bronson had walked over from the workplace, and Sheila insisted on giving him a lift back. Obviously, nobody was going to mess with him, but dusk in the city is dangerous for anybody. She pulled up to the first red light and smiled to herself. This was nice. Mr. Bronson quietly nodded in agreement. Nice and simple. But the niceness didn't last. The flashing lights in her rearview mirror made certain to stamp all over that moment. A few seconds later, a police officer was at her window with a flashlight in her face. Excuse me, ma'am. Have you been drinking? Yes, I assure you I am under the limit. And where are you headed? I'm just taking my coworker back to his car. And your coworker is... Ma'am, I'm going to need you to step out of the car right now. What? No, I am under the limit. But the cop was already on his radio. Yeah, I'm going to need backup and get animal control. There's a crazy drunk woman with a bear in her car. What is he talking about? She turned to Mr. Bronson for some help making sense of it. But all he did was remove his glasses and say, "This just got complicated."